headed by the Professor Nicholls from Berkeley on ecology. I'm pleased to, to give the floor to the professor and to start this first part. Yeah.
Good morning, everybody. Thank you for coming today. I don't know if you have questions from last class that we wanted to discuss first. For those who didn't come, I know that new faces are here. We were discussing the crisis, national agriculture and how agriculture mentioned that in Paraná. And just to put it here in context, we are going to continue with the topic. And today we have three topics. I have a lot of slides, so I apologize if I speak very quick. But I think it will be very good for you at least to see the example how it works. But the first topic I think is important at least to mention the role of biodiversity, because when we talk about diversity, it's the variability among living organisms and the ecological complex, which they promote the ecological processes. Last week we were discussing that one of the principles of agroecology is biodiversity. So, but for this particular class, I'm going to explain the levels of biodiversity and how we work in agriculture. So we talk about here everything that is connected to the different ecosystems. And the other thing that is important in agroecology is the interactions and how these elements of life, that could be species of plants, it could be different organisms, and the interaction among these species are the ones who define the dynamic of the ecosystem. So this is more or less what we were discussing last class, and when we have this typical industrial agriculture, so the dynamic and interaction are very poor, and this is the reason why we need to put a lot of energy or a lot of input to maintain the system in check. Different than these systems that are more diversified, farming systems that are going to present all the examples. They have a lot of ecological interactions, so the processes like biological control, nutrient cycling, they can allow the functionality of the ecosystem, of the agri-ecosystem. And here, here you can see the genes, the species, the abundance, and the distribution are the ones who are going with interaction to provide all these functional processes like photosynthesis, all the conservation of water, natural regulation, nutrient cycling, and at the same time they provide these services, ecosystem services that many people now call ecosystem services, and this is more or less what we need to maintain, but also there are economic and social values of this biodiversity that probably some people are interested in these values, well-being that are important in terms of conservation, restoration, and so on. And you can see that we separate here in this slide the ecosystem services, in terms of provisioning of food, fresh water, and so on. And regulating, we are talking about here climate regulation, disease regulation, pest control, in terms of natural pest control. And culturally, we can talk about the beauty that is very important in the ecosystem now, because agritourism, for example, is very important. And also the well-being could be organizing security, basic material need for good life, health, and good social relations. Okay, here is the difference between a natural landscape, diversified landscape where we produce certain crops, and monoculture, just like agriculture. And if you can see in this Oh, great. Here you can see the difference. Here in the monoculture, probably we have high productivity, but huge environmental cost. Okay, and all these externalities that you can see that probably they don't provide habitats for pollinators, for example, or biodiversity. The water flow regulation is very low, the water quality regulation is very low, and so on. Compared with the natural ecosystem that have all these indicators very high, but in the natural ecosystem we don't harvest anything. So what we need is a balance of all these indicators. So we have crop production, but at the same time we are providing different environmental services that are very important. So there are three different hypotheses how biodiversity function. The first, biodiversity, that is the one that we work in agriculture, is the functional biodiversity, where many components of the biodiversity play a key ecological role. This is very, very important. Because when you take a class in ecology, they said higher biodiversity are going to provide stability, right? But the problem is that, and they have a lot of species, but they don't have the same thing. In the case of the ecosystem, we need only those key species that play a key role and they can be with the main crop, and at the same time we have hypothesis. So this is the hypothesis that is very important. And the other hypothesis is the redundant hypothesis, redundancy. And you're going to see that this diversity is very important. Become very important when an event comes. And when I present the examples of climate change, you're going to see why it's so important, for example, to have windbreaks. Trees are protecting the farm, because, for example, in the case of hurricane, these windbreaks are going to reduce the speed of the wind, and they are going to protect the crop. So the wind, this diversity becoming very important when you have an event. Okay, many people can argue, but you don't harvest that. You are spending more time, or you are spending money to create this corridors, this windbreak. But the thing is, in the long term, and when the event comes, it became very important. And the other one is the insurance hypothesis. It means you don't put all the eggs in one basket. So if you have just coffee and something happens with the pest or with the climate change, you lose everything. But you have a different variety of crops. If something happens with the coffee, you can sell the citrus, the avocado, the fruits, or at least the food for the family. Okay. Sorry. Okay, thank you. And this is more or less the roles in the natural ecosystem. It's maybe different than in the ecosystem, but I think it's important to mention purify the water, the cycle of oxygen and carbon, maintain soil fertility. In the case of agriculture, use food and medicine, and also provide the genetic richness that is very important for agriculture. And so. So in terms of biodiversity, I think is the basis of agriculture. We are going to see, at least with the example that I'm going to present, it doesn't depend on just one species, but multiple species, and also not only crops, but also livestock, and is the foundation of ecosystem services that is essential for human life. And so here, more or less in summary, why the importance of agricultural biodiversity. First of all, is the natural pest control is one of the ecosystem services. Many people now call ecosystem services, but biological control has been there for centuries. I think it's so important in terms of how we are going to control pests and diseases, and we use other arthropods and also microorganisms that play a key role in maintaining the population of pest diseases, even weeds. And nutrient cycling. So here the main functional biodiversity is the soil biota, three roles, bacteria, microorganisms, earthworms, termites that contribute to maintain and increase the fertility. And pollination, so important. And this, on Wednesday, we were discussing how the population of bees, especially huge monocultures, are increasing. And so pollination is one of the services that we always talk about insect as a pollinator, but bats now are playing a big role in the pollination, especially in bees. We have a student that are doing the PhD, how to increase the population of bats and other species that are very important to maintain the pollination service. And talking about climate change, regulation of hydrological processes are so important. And we maintain good organic matter exterior to see and also the local cycles of water are part of this. Carbon sequestration, I think, is one consequence of the management, but it's also important by the vegetation, how we organize the architecture of the plants, but also what practices we are doing in the soil. It's a consequence that capture carbon. And the other thing is the conservation, so we can conserve more endangered species and also maintain the agrobiodiversity. So you can see here that we divide in components and functions. That is very important to see the components of the functional biodiversity: pollinators, predators and parasitoids, earthworms, soil mesofauna, and soil macrofauna, and macro and microfauna, and the function that all of them play in the ecosystem. So many people argue that there are disadvantages to have biodiversity. So probably I agree that in some cases, if you don't choose the right biodiversity that are going to accompany the main crop, that they have a functionality, you can have a competition. And I think last class we were discussing about that. And the other thing that could be a disadvantage is that you need more knowledge. And I don't know if I emphasized last class that agroecology is more dependent on knowledge than you. So this could be a disadvantage in my opinion, but I think it has more advantages like less impact to pests, because you have the natural elements that are going to maintain the pest in check. Diversification of production is something happening. The crop kind and like last year, I think you lost all the terms. So it would be great if the farming has something to sell. So the diversification strategy in terms of economics is so important, and conservation of major species and higher resilience. This is more or less the conceptual view of the agrobiodiversity. For example, you arrive in a region like this one in Emilia-Romagna. So you're going to see that there's a lot of biodiversity, right? When you are driving, coming to the region. But for us, it's very important to see the agrobiodiversity. So within this lane, so we are going to another lane to see the agrobiodiversity. And within the agrobiodiversity, we are going to find different kinds of arrangements. For example, we can have a mixed cropping system, we have cross species and varieties in one particular farm, or we can have animal integration in certain farms, or we also, if we look in another lane, like the kind of work that you're doing, you're sampling soil to see if you have the beneficial soil biota that we need. So it's another kind of biodiversity that is important to see in that big concept of agrobiodiversity. So when we enter into the agrobiodiversity, for us, it's very important to see what is the cultivated or the plant biodiversity. What the farmer decided to plant. So what kind of crop do they have? What kind of livestock? They have fisheries, etc. Then we look for the associated biodiversity that support this production. It could be soil biota, it could be beneficial elements, it could be different kind of plants or other crops or other auxiliary biodiversity that maintain this main crop. And you are going to see that we talk about the surrounding biodiversity. It means if that particular farm is surrounded by monoculture or is surrounded with other diversified farms, it's different. And the wild biodiversity outside the agricultural ecosystem. So here we have the plant biodiversity, what the farmer decide to do. This create a condition that promote the associated biodiversity. If the farmer decides to have just a monoculture, probably we are not going to have a lot of associated biodiversity because we don't have the condition for natural elements to establish. And then some farmers have this surrounded biodiversity because they are surrounded with nature, forests, or with farms that are very diversified, that organic. It's different than if you are surrounded by another monoculture. And then the management that you're going to do about this agrobiodiversity depends on the knowledge that you have. For that reason, it's kind of the trade-off. You need to have knowledge, more information in order to decide what you're going to plant, what cover crop are you going to use in the orchard, things like that nature. And then you promote the processes and or ecosystem services that you want. This is just an example of cocoa that they need shade, okay? But because they need shade, we decide what kind of fruits, other trees we can have, or we have timber, or we have medicinal plants when you are establishing the cocoa. So this is the cultivated or plant biodiversity with farmers, we decide this. And then you are going to see the associated biodiversity. What kind of pollinator do we have? What kind of insect do we have? Could be pests, could be beneficial insects, the soil microorganism, and so on. An additional biodiversity would be if we have the forest nearby, so we can observe different things and the wild biodiversity outside the agricultural ecosystem. What are the consequences? We have high biodiversity. As I said, we can have leads to more effective natural pest control, tighter nutrient cycle that is very important, and they are more stable and resilient agro-ecosystem that we are looking for. So for us, okay, here we have the biodiversity, the agro-biodiversity, this length, and now in agroecology, we are looking for the functional biodiversity. That we are always looking for that kind of diversity that is going to provide beneficial interaction and synergy. We don't want plants that are going to compete, that they have the same, are from the same family, that explore, that need the same nutrients, and they have the same food system, because we are going to have a problem. We are going to look for plants that are going to complement each other, and that they are going to have this beneficial interaction, and they are going to optimize these ecological, these processes that we discuss in agroecology. So the types of agrobiodiversity that we have genetic resources, we have edible plants and crops, we have livestock, we have soil microorganisms, we have naturally occurring insects, bacteria, and fungi. And also we have different kinds of agrosystems, big, small, monoculture versus diversified system. We have rain-fed and irrigated, that the dynamic is different at those conditions. And also we have wild resources. I think this is what I wanted to emphasize. I showed more examples, the benefits of these levels of diversity. The first level is genetic diversity. The second one is species diversity. And then we have ecosystem diversity or landscape diversity. The one that are very, very important that we are going to explore with more detail. In terms of genetic diversity.
Scusi, prof, potrebbe condividere lo schermo che è
Can you pass this slide for me? Okay, genetic diversity, and we
Can you share the
talk a little
screen?
bit about that. That is so important in last class. But I want to start with some example why farmers maintain the genetic diversity, especially in center of origin of crops, but also different strategies. Okay. The plant genetic resources for food and agriculture are the biological characteristics for food security. And then we have, for example, the modern varieties, the modern cultivars, but also we have traditional varieties. Also, we have crop-wide varieties that are very important for like kind of looking for new varieties. And I think they're good. And we have other wild plant species that can be used, but are used. Okay, last class we said that the majority of people are growing 4 major crops, right? And we have so many different plants that we can use for our consumption. But for the future, I think it's important to know. Okay, this is in Peru. Peru is center of origin the Andes in Latin America, is the center of origin of potatoes. So this is the starting point. And in the Andes, probably these farmers can have up to, or in this region, we can have up to probably 8,000 varieties of potatoes. So farmers kept many of these varieties because they ensure and beautify the harvest that they have. Some varieties have I don't know, David, but this horse. Okay. Huh? Okay. Okay. What is the importance of genetic diversity? And here, for example, we have the modern varieties of the Green Revolution that were developed thinking that you need to have a package. You need to have irrigation, you need to have inputs, if you have this package, you are going to have optimal yield, right? And perform well in those conditions. But the majority of the farmers in the world are in marginal environment. The people that are producing the food, 50 to 70% comes from the small farms. And they are in marginal environment. So these varieties, because they don't have irrigation, because they are in poor soil, they don't have money to buy inputs. So the yields are very, very low. But look what happened with the traditional varieties that they have. Those varieties sometimes are drought tolerant. They are comfortable with the kind of soil that they have. So the performance is probably they are going to have lower yield, but in a range of environments that are very high. So this is one element that is important to understand. However, unfortunately, the Green Revolution caused a lot of genetic erosion. Okay, because with the Green Revolution and modern varieties and sort of tied to the development, farmers need to use certain varieties with certain package. Okay, so if the farmer needed credit, he ended up using modern varieties. The bad thing that the only way that we are going to pay the debt is to use the technology. Okay, quote unquote. And so this is what happened. We reduced the genetic diversity. And in order, this is what happened, the path of modern agriculture. And what we are saying is that we need to increase diversity in the system, in order to do the transition, and we are going to see the class of conversion. We need more varieties. Why? Because it has a lot of benefits. Okay, so if there are different kinds of options how we are going to increase genetic diversity, interplanting, intercropping, or using multi-lines, and so on. So we are going to see that this is one strategy very important in the conversion. Okay. The other good thing about genetic diversity, at least in the area where I work, entomologists, we have been observing that in systems where we have genetic diversity, the opportunities for natural elements are higher than if we have a monoculture. Okay, so here we have a genotypically diverse mixture of, let's say, corn. So the opportunity for beneficiaries in this case predators higher than if you have a monoculture. Sorry. Okay, here probably I'm in the field of Davide, and you please, if you want to add some information, would be great. But I'm not a climatologist, but I think it's very important to understand why, where do we have diseases? In order to have diseases, we need three big elements, or the triangle of the disease that is. We have a high temperature and high relative humidity, is one condition. The other condition will be a host that is susceptible, and the pathogen that is very virulent. We have these three conditions, we have a result here, right? That is the first case. For example, if we have a monoculture with one variety, and this variety is susceptible, we are going to have a result. If we have two different varieties, one is tolerant and the other is susceptible, and the pathogen arrives in the host that is tolerant, we are going to have disease. So 50% chance that we don't have disease. If we have 4, 8, so if we have more varieties, the probability to have disease are going to be reduced. So in agroecology, we work with preventive approach, right? In order to avoid diseases, we need to increase genetic diversity. Very important. So this is the case of maize, center of origin Mexico and Mesoamerica, the center of origin of corn. For example, they have 50% or more dominated with this garden, Mexico. Big country. They have 2,500 different uses. So not only as a grain, but they use for many other things. They organize the landscape of the agro-ecosystem with different varieties, but also it's part of the culture. And I think I mentioned that last class. It's very important, the kind of culinary, but also the social and cultural organization around this laminate. There are many people here from the genetic engineering, the skill that they can have now that are helping us to understand the corn. So this is the genetic landscape of different varieties in Mexico. That it's an amazing research that in Ecosur, our colleagues are doing in terms of identifying what kind of genes, not for genetic modified crops, but to understand, genetically speaking, the corn and how we can use it in the agro-ecosystem with farmers. So this is one example from the semi-arid region of Mexico, in Oaxaca. And these farmers have kept many varieties, including one that is drought tolerant. We are talking about here a region that rains only 300 millimeters of water a year, only. And they have the variety that is drought tolerant, that is very important. And we are going to see the example when I talk about climate change. Okay, the other level is species diversity. So here comes the middle part. This is that we were discussing last class. And it's a cultural, genetic, and also ecological diversity that you have in our kingdom. Corn, bean, squash. Then they are chiles. And this is a polyculture that has a very good productivity. There is an indicator that we use that I'm going to explain later in the other class, explain how efficient you are using the land. Because in 1 hectare, they have 4 bean squash. And the land is, if you are going to, it's 1.5 means that you need 1.5 hectares of the monoculture to produce the same amount of food that you're producing in the polyculture. Why? Because you are using the soil more efficiently, you are using the water more efficiently, but these three crops have a synergy, so they complement each other. Okay? That is very important. This is one aspect of the species diversity. Here we have 3 or 4 or more species. Genetically speaking, also we can have different varieties of corn, different varieties of chili, but in terms of species diversity is very important. We have another species diversity in terms of soil microbiology, so we can have all kind of organisms that play very important role. And I think we need the microbiologists a lot in agriculture. So I hope the PhD students do a lot of research on that, because we need it. Because it's something that we cannot see very rapidly, and the kind of research help us to understand these food webs, micro food webs, to explain why the system is working. Okay. And okay, these are, for example, sorry that is in Spanish, but we have microorganisms that can like mycorrhiza that colonize also. So this sometimes the farmers that they are in acid soil, that there is not that they don't have phosphorus, but the phosphorus is immobilized, so plant cannot absorb the phosphorus. So if they have, or in the soil, we have mycorrhiza. Mycorrhiza is very important to solubilize phosphorus and make it accessible for plant. And we have also restoring, for example, that take nitrogen, very important for the plants and so on. So we have here different organs that solubilize, this is in Spanish also, fix nitrogen, solubilize phosphorus. Also, they produce phytohormones, and so we can have all the conditions. But we are going to see more later. Here are the 5 benefits of soil biodiversity: healthy soil, climate change, water purification, human health, and plant growth. I think this is kind of nice summary of the benefits of the soil microbiology. And in terms of diversity of natural elements, my area of research, so we have parasitoid, we have predators, we have pollinators that are very important. These two to accomplish pest regulation, but this one to accomplish pollination. And you can see here that there are certain practices that increase pollinators, and we need to increase the diversity of pollinators, not depend only in apis mellifera. Different kinds of pollinators are so important, but also the environment that we create for them to do the work, the job that they need to do. And weeds sometimes are very important for them. And in modern agriculture, we have the tendency to eliminate all the weeds. And understanding the food webs, the kind of research that I'm doing, is to see who is eating what and how we have this complex food web, so the system is more stable. And we rely on an army of natural living, right? That there's one particular one that is very specific. In agroecology, we work with conservation, biological control by conservation, creating the condition for natural elements to establish. So there are 3 types of biological control. One is like classical biological control, then augmentative biological control, that is more or less what the organic agriculture is doing. They buy the inputs from outside and they maintain the monoculture, so they depend on the input. So that is what the final product is so expensive. The food, organic food is expensive. I don't know here in California, it's just for the rich because they're the only who can pay. But it's because the system depends on input that they buy from outside. So the cost of production is very high, and the product is very expensive. But in agroecology, you are going to see that we provide a condition for natural elements to start, for biological control by conservation. And this is another thing, studying how far they move. How far do I need to have a diversity in order to maintain the natural elements in check? Provide habitat, provide pollen and nectar that they need. So we are writing this concept that I think for the rest of my talk is so important, the functional biodiversity. So here we have different components of functional biodiversity dimension that have roles on biological pest control and pollination, macro, like the soil biota, they have a very important function, soil health, water balance, productivity, and macroclimatic amelioration. Okay, so this is so important for the rest of the talk. And also we can have broad species diversity in understanding the structure. For example, in the milpa, we have corn, beans, and squash. That is this case. And for example, the corn has pollen that provide the energy for natural elements. Pollen that natural elements used to control pests on beans. Okay, and the squash, when it rains, the water wash the leaves and have a allelopathic effect and avoid weeds. So they control weeds. So in this case, you have beneficial interaction in terms of biological control, but also allelopathic effect on weeds. This is an agroforestry system of coffee. You can see that the shade, last time we talked a little bit about the shade, the daily shade, but you need 40 to 60% of the shade to have circulation to avoid diseases. Have another shade to create the condition for diseases. But also they have other services. You have feeding that fix nitrogen. And this is with animals, what we call silvopastoral systems. So they are in condition that benefit for the animals, but also a diversity of feed for animals, because they can feed on grasses, but also in different processes that you have in the system. So you can see here that the structure is in time and space, and this diversity share niches and functions that maintain the stability of the system. This is the silvopastoral system. This is in Colombia, in the south part of Colombia, in the Western Andes. With Tithonia diversifolia, it is a plant that it has multiple purposes. For example, the flower, attracting to control pests, especially leafhoppers, that is one of the major pests of grasses. But also animals love Tithonia. They can browse on Tithonia and also the grasses. But the other thing that is very important with Tithonia, that the foliage have a lot of phosphorus. So the foliage, so farmers, what they are doing is turning the Tithonia and add the phosphorus to the soil. For example, in Africa, they use a lot of Tithonia as support. And the small farmers also are using that a lot. And this is another example of crop diversity of polyculture, milpa, but also because due to climate change in Mexico, corn is very successful, so many regions they are using nopal, opuntia, here, you can see, opuntia with beans. So in what we need to do is the conversion that I'm going to explain in a minute with more details, but we need to move on from the simplified system, monoculture, into more complex system. And we need to have changes in composition, structure, and function. So we need to think. I have a chapter in one book of Professor Bradley. It's called Ecological Engineering. So we need to think what are we going to do, the redesign. Like the engineers are doing, the pumps, and this is more like what we need with farmers to try to think how we are going to do this redesign. And there are three pillars. So we need to maximize the biological control. So the first pillar, if we want to maximize these services, is to eliminate the use of pesticides. We can eliminate pesticides because natural elements are very sensitive to pesticides. Then we need to increase the predator community through natural neutralism. What does that mean? that natural enemies feed on insects, right? Pests. But if the pest is not there, they need something to eat. There are certain insects that are no pests, that are no natural enemies. They are what we call nutrients. They are not causing damage, but serve as a food for natural enemies, pests and pests. And the other thing is increase the community of natural enemies with a habitat for them. Because they need to hide in the summer, they don't want to be in the field. They want to be hide in, under the tree or in the bushes or in the weeds. So we need to create this condition for them. And also, another important aspect is to increase the diversity in the surrounding, the farm, the landscape. This is what I call ecological engineering. So we need to restore the biodiversity or we need to conserve using different strategies that I'm going to present in my other talks, in the last talk, the examples. And this is what we need to increase, species diversity. But we are in that level and that provide ecosystem function and services. So in agroecology, we work with these two principles, above ground and below ground. In this particular one, soil biology is very important. The management that we are doing in order to conserve the soil biology. And in this case, we are going to work with different schemes of diversity in order to provide the condition for natural enemies to reduce pests, but also to reduce pathogen incidence and to reduce the seed bank of weeds, and to have a good outcome in terms of crop immunity, nutritionally balanced crops, and pest resilience. Okay, this is kind of very quick about genetics, species diversity, landscape diversity. This is in Colombia. This example comes from Colombia, but this is what we have, a very deforested area. And now we have a concept, now we are working with ecologists, working on a concept of agroecological restoration. Why? Because most of our farmers are in marginal environment, very deforested, and so the soil is very poor in terms of nutrients, so we need to work together. Before we used to work on the farm level, and we were just having a very nice farm, but in a context of the territory that is totally integrated. And landscape ecology for working restoration, but the landscape without looking for the farm. So now we are combining these two areas of knowledge, and then this is more or less the result. So this is in Colombia, in the Andes, in the Western Andes, where the idea was to start working with the restoration, creating these corridors, and through silvopasture system, because most of these areas are fire branching. So many people think that it's impossible, and many people are blaming on the cow, but it's not the cow, it's the system, how the cow has been produced. So we need to look in a more broader scope, the landscape, and try to understand how we can improve, like in this particular case, the cattle production of the livestock using silvopastoral system, but other crops that are associated in the farm nearby. So with agroecological approach, so farmers can have an alternative. And here is the agro landscape, and the same as I showed before in the species at the crop level. We need to understand the interactions that are here. If they have fisheries, if they have what kind of soil organs, biodiversity do they have, if they have animals, if the animals participate in the rotation, and also they have crops. So all kind of this dynamic is so important. And what is the forest? If they have forests, how we connect this forest into the agriculture. So this is pictures from here from Italy that I took not time ago when I used to go to Bari. And you have like mosaics. This is just from the highway. I think went into the system. This is the agrobiodiversity that I saw from the highway. Very diverse. It's not just like the Andalusia in Spain that I don't know if you have been there, but it's a sea of olives. It's just olives all over. And also inefficient. In this particular case, even if they are conventional, probably there is one step forward. So we can do many things. So let's say in the landscape perspective is kind of very diverse compared with this one, for example, or in this case, it's just vineyard, no cover, huge vineyard that could be, you need more effort to diversify that, okay? And now there is a literature that is coming out, talking about complex agricultural landscape that hosts more biodiversity than single ones. So it's an important variable. Monoculture less biodiversity than the more diversified system, but now they're talking about the landscape. And I think this is good. This is a meta-analysis that is very important. And also the influence of the landscape into the natural elements community. So you have landscape and on-farm plant diversity, so you are going to have more benefit. I'm going to show in my talk about that. This is another landscape, very beautiful landscape from Indonesia, and you think that it's only rice, but they have many varieties of rice, center of origin rice, so they can have, but we think that it's only rice, but no, as I showed last class, they have ducks, they have fish, they have other plants that are part of the system. But let me show you the influence of the landscape. This is rice. Rice is so difficult to diversify inside because the machinery. And last class, Professor was here talking about machinery. We are not in machinery. We understand that sometimes farmers need to use it. But what we can do is keep the borders. So, for example, this is in the Philippines. The comparison between farms that have these borders and the population of, you can see, compared with monoculture rice. The population, the abundance of predators that are going to control the pests is higher in these diversified farm systems compared with the monoculture. Okay, if we have that, so plant diversification, enhance predator abundance, reduce pests, increase yield, and you don't need pesticides. Okay, but as you are going to see, sometimes we need to help in the design because if you have the border, you have trees, you have plantain, you have a lot of, already age, very diversified age, but you don't have the condition for natural age. They need pollen and nectar for the reproduction of the community. So we can have the diversity, but it's not working. So we need to help it creating these corridors of flowers that are going to provide what they need. Okay? And you're going to see the example how we do this. And this is one example of the landscape, the importance of the landscape diversity. This is a UNESCO category that Miguel participated in the creation of years, Global Indigenous Agricultural Heritage System. You go to FAO and look for the years. They started with 10 pilots, but now they have more sites all over. And in Latin America, we had 3. One in the Andes, in the center of origin of corn, potatoes. And we have another one in Chiloé, that is secondary center of potatoes, and one in Mexico, center of origin of corn. It's very important that it's center of origin, because GIAs are exceptional land use system and landscapes with rich biodiversity. Evolved with the indigenous people, the cooptation of nature. So genetic diversity is so important, but also the management of the landscape. And also it's very important how they manage these landscapes in the communal services. So there are the features of GIAs is mainly there are examples of evolution in harmony with ecosystem, society, and the culture. So for that reason, it's so important that center of origin, but also people that know about these varieties. So they contain a lot of biodiversity in crops and products. They contain knowledge and also the adapted of social and cultural organization, and they provide certain services. And so why years in the world? Local biodiversity, traditional knowledge, and indigenous practice. These are the elements that needed to choose different sites. And these are the pilot sites. Chiloé in Latin America, this is the example that I brought, but it's also in the Andean region in Peru. And this is the Philippines, China, and Tunisia. Amazing landscape. Japan is one of them. I know very well the Japan is very standard. And the thing is that you have beautiful, amazing landscape, but when you enter the field, they are using a lot of plastic, unfortunately. So in the case of Chiloé, no, because they have been doing agroecology for more than 30 years. This is what I'm going to present. But in the case of Asia, they are beautiful, they are very beautiful landscape, but in terms of management, they are very conventional. These are the example of rice in Indonesia and Madagascar. And you remember this example that started with the, with the varieties, introducing the fish into the system, and also the duck, the moment when they the ducks, and there are with a traditional meal. Okay? That is part of the cultural knowledge and management, and why they are maintaining this. This is Chiloé. This is it's an island in the south of Chile, Latin America, and it's one of the pilot experiments that I want to share with you. These are the conditions for GIS site in Chiloé, that they have biodiversity, they have a strong agrarian culture, and they have the traditional knowledge. And the idea is to conserve this genetic diversity, but not in advance, like, for example, that we have in different buildings. We need to have the conservation variety on fields with farms. This is the dynamic conservation, and also not only of potatoes but other crops. So biodiversity and cultural diversity going hand with to guarantee this conservation, and the cultural diversity is kind of the main. So in this case, I just talked about genetic, physics, and landscape diversity. But if we don't have this cultural diversity, probably it will be very difficult to conserve this landscape, conserve traditional variety. So everything is linked to human action. And in this particular case, it's cultural diversity. So rural women are key. They are having invisibilized with policies. And nobody talk about the role of women in agriculture, but they are the ones who are doing the job. Okay, and they are keeping the varieties. Because at least in this particular case of Chiloé, this is the potatoes. They also have a traditional garlic and traditional breed of this sheep. That is amazing what they are doing with this in terms of craft that they do. But the way they maintain the tradition, how they plant. But these women kept more than 400 traditional varieties, because it was part of the culture to give potatoes to the daughter when they got married. And the ladies were saying that the men, during the modern agriculture era, so conventional agriculture, they just wanted to plant the cereal variety, that is modern variety. And they were like a chain for them if they have traditional varieties. It's kind of bullying in a sense that the other farmers say, you're using traditional variety, you're backwards. But the women kept this variety, so they say that they put it in the pocket when they were planting, and without the guy, he was hiding the varieties, and this is the way how they kept so many varieties. And now, in our project of climate change, we selected 6 varieties from the varieties that the women had, 6 varieties that were drought tolerant, very important in the scenario of climate change. In a region that we never thought that they needed, because it rains a lot. But it was a year, I think it was in 2013 that it was a drought in Chile, and these ladies helped other farmers with these varieties. So very important. And so this is in honor of the manual that Carlos, that belongs to my work, my team, is doing in order to visualize the role of women and the role of traditional varieties in Chile. And also there's a lot of research understanding these varieties in terms of the antioxidant capacity of different varieties, traditional varieties, and you can see that they have high levels of antioxidant capacity. And also they are using trichoderma to control Phytophthora, for example. Okay. So that is the result of the medicine that they are doing that is so important. And now they have a label that is very important, because once FAO says something, the government says, oh, okay, FAO said that, okay, we are going to support that. So the Minister of Agriculture support for this label. So you have here the National Institute of Chile that provide this label. And so they are using, I'm going to show this in the example of rural development, my last class. That is very beautiful how farmers are now very proud of the territory that they have, and they are defending this farm, because are providing a lot of benefits, economic benefits. Now tourists, local tourists are coming to see what they are doing. They have visitors that they offer a good meal with this potato. They explain how they are planting the potato, why they are conserving this potato. So it's very beautiful in terms of development. So in summary, this is the role of biodiversity: prevent colonization by species and reduce the level of infestation. So this is one aspect that is so important with diversity. Also, another role of diversity: increase the resiliency and stability, the redundant biodiversity that I mentioned before, and also increase the functioning of the ecosystem by promoting ecosystem services. And you can see here the intensive ecosystem, high perturbation. So we are looking for these systems that have more biodiversity-based ecosystem with low perturbation, closing ecosystem or closing cycles, and providing these services that we need. I think this is my last slide, yes. In order to break here, it's a lot of information, I know that. Anyway, so give you a better picture about how we work with in order to understand what is the next class. So we have a break.
Yeah. There are some questions for the Professor Nicholls concerning this seminar.
Yes.
Increased biodiversity actually including varieties with mechanization, often increasing by changing variety means changing technology. And so when you mix different varieties, then your technology is shifted and you cannot use the same machine at the same time. So do you find sufficient number of cultivars of the same species that have the same technology that can manage them with the machine?
Yeah, this is the challenge that we are facing. And now we need to work with people that do this machinery to think about in the different scenarios that we can have. Because I agree that for example, tall varieties versus low varieties. But one way to avoid or to continue to use this machinery could be using scripts that allow the entrance of this machinery that you have for harvest, or thinking in the design of new machinery would be great. But what the parties are doing, for example, the moment, as I presented with rights, is to maintain diversified genetically with species with the varieties that are similar, so they can use the same machinery and diversify the surrounding. Yeah, because I understand that in particular cases are difficult. But for example, in Iowa, I'm going to present later the example of Iowa. They do split cropping, for example, of corn and soy, but big, in order to use the machinery harvest the corn and use the machinery for make the different with soy. But instead of having just soy or just that rotation that they used to have corn and soy by monoculture, they're doing the same time. Okay. Protection is very important, but I think also we need to think in terms of verse in space. Any other questions? Yes.
First of all, thank you very much for your presentation. Just a question, in your presentation, you have not given an idea about the dimension of time. Each culture can evolve in time. So I think this is a very important point from the study of biodiversity. For example, I remember when known by Indios in the South America forest, they had Colombo and with Yucca and then Royo and change and manage this change until it reached now the forest.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
This is like a good.
Yeah. It depends. For example, if you are using agroforestry system, the crop is very important. It's type of biodiversity, how you include trees and why you're including trees in the ecosystem is because soil are so poor. So nutrients are in the foliage of trees, but also trees play a very important role in returning some nutrients that are leaching. So they have the dynamic, and it started with the banana crop, and then they start adding perennials, cassava, and then plantain, and then sugar and cocoa, until they are with the forest. And I think this is kind of the typical example of how we learn them, how they use it. But not everybody can have agroforestry because they are in temporary areas or they are in the hillside and say in the altitude belts that are different in the tropical areas that we suffer with other climatic conditions. So the diversity change to different strategies, but the principle is the same. Diversity and then the complementarity. Synergies, the kind of idea. And here, probably the best is going to take different parts. If you are in flat soil with a lot of machinery, so you need to think in that scenario, how you are going to diversify. It could be with multi-lines, or you can use genetic diversity mix. But you have the varieties, it's a matter of time. It's kind of start thinking. You are the ones who need to think what is possible here. No, it's very expert in this scenario, but I think the main, this is what we were saying last class, that ecology work with principles that take different technological form according you are in the tropics, you are in the lowlands, you are in the highlands, or you are in Madagascar, or you are in Italy or Colombia, or in Kosovo. It depends on what kind of farming are you working with, small or big, or a lot of constraints. Okay, these are the principles that we were discussing the other day about agroecology, just to starting point. Enhance the recycling of biomass with a view to optimizing organic matter, the composition and nutrient cycling over time. So it's so important, starting with the organic matter accumulation. Strengthen the immune system, very important, the agricultural system through the enhancement of functional biodiversity. Another principle that is so important. And this is what we were discussing. Provide the favorable soil condition for plant growth, particularly organic matter, and enhancing our soil biology. The other thing is minimize losses. We cannot lose energy, water, and nutrients and genetic resources. This is one of the principles. And the other principle that is very much diversity of species and genetic resources. The two levels that we discussed, genetic and species diversity, over time and space. So it could be through rotation or on time, on space. Enhance beneficial biological interaction and synergism that we discussed, the positive interactions. And another principle is include the traditional knowledge and cultural dimensions into the territory. And then the other one is more related to the social organization and progress. Because agroecology, the difference between agroecology, organic agriculture, biodynamic agroecology is a science that includes the social, political, economic, and ecological aspect. Organic agriculture is just a mode of production. Biodynamic is thing, and they have models that are very important, but they don't include the social dimension that's part of the agroecological approach. So this is how we work. You remember that we were discussing that agroecology works with principles that take technological forms according if there are small farmers, big farmers. But the idea with this practice is to promote processes. And one way to know if we are in the right direction is through methodology that I'm going to explain, I think, Monday. The indicators to see if they are applying the agroecological principles or not. So we need to, the idea is the bio-intensification of knowledge. So here is, it comes the input that we are applying in the system to enhance diversity and abundance of beneficial biota. And beneficial biota includes soil biota, plants, insects that are going to maintain the productivity. Application of ecological interaction and processes to achieve soil fertility and plant health, and replace inputs for processes. This is the difference. When you are in the conversion, you need to replace that input that you're using in the conventional farm or in an organic farm for process, ecological process. So if we need to put this in stages, so these are like the 3 stages of the conversion. First, the IPM integrated management that many farmers are right now, fortunately, but this is not applicable. This is how they are managing the inputs that they in a rational way is monitoring and so. And then you move to input substitution that is more like what organic agriculture is right now. And the idea is to move this into this system redesign, more agroecological and sustainable approach. So let's start with the first case. This is IPM, right? This is, for example, when the pests reach this level above the threshold, it means that you need to take action. Unfortunately, no, I would say here that in many countries is just count the amount of pests that you have or insect and apply a strategy. Unfortunately, this strategy is always criticized. IPM, the idea with IPM is to include cultural, all the factors, biological, cultural, and insecticide at the end, if it is necessary. But the industry are using the IPM as a strategy for farmers to use more pesticides, instead of just concentrating in pesticides and forget about the other strategies of IPM. So I call IPM intelligent pesticide management. What they are doing, they are reducing, but they still use it. Okay, so we need to move from here to more sustainable, and many people are doing this through organic. They are changing a package of chemicals for a package of another organic inputs. So this is California. This is a farmer that is ready to plant, and he ordered the compost, for example. Instead of using synthetic fertilizer, he buys compost and he plants strawberries. So if you are planting in a hive, you don't know if this is conventional or organic, because the structure is the same. It's a monoculture. It's better than conventional, obviously, but we need to go and see the soil. If you see the soil, you are going to see the difference immediately. Okay? So the other thing that happened, at least in California, is that this farmer, this is also strawberry, depend on input that they buy from outside. For example, here they are releasing phytosaline, the regulatory mite that control the trans pests. And they apply more than 20 products during the season. So it's very expensive. The cost of production is like this. Okay? And sometimes these insects are right there because they are coming from the laboratory far away. And when you are releasing in the field, sometimes they are there. So you need to be very careful with this approach. But anyway, it's good, yes, but we need to move this into more less dependent on it. This is Chile. It's an organic vineyard in Chile. It looks like a monoculture, isn't it? It could be conventional, but it's organic. And what we have seen is that, you know, this is in apple production in Seattle. You can see here that the cumulative benefits on there is no a difference on yield when you have conventional, integrated, or organic. Same, because many people argue that they are using conventional because it's more productive. But over the time, we can reach the same yields that conventional have. But in some years, you can see that organic is much better. Probably because during the drought period, the organic system performs better than the conventional because they add a lot of organic matter, so they create the condition. So this is what we work in agroecology with these two principles: plant health and soil quality. So it's so important. So in order to enhance soil organic matter, we have different practices, but the idea is to have organic matter accumulation, biological activation, and nutrient cycling. And in terms of crop diversification, we have different processes that we want to optimize: biological control, and better use of water, nutrients, solar energy, and complementarity between crops that we are adding in order to have plant health or high crop quality. So if we have organic matter, so the idea is that we are going to enhance infiltration, but also we are going to enhance water holding capacity. The idea is that we need to store water in the soil for if the climate change scenario comes, like a drought comes. So these systems are going to perform well. So here you can see that one indicator that we're going to use is structure. Why? Because we can change the structure using different practices. For example, you have a clay soil that don't have a good structure, so you start adding organic matter in order to grass, especially to graminate, to break the soil and create these spaces, these pore spaces that are going to the storage water. Okay? So a good structure is when you have a lot of pores, and essential for water infiltration, but also for biology activity. So in terms of soil organic matter, helps us to have more water retention, more aggregation, promote plant health, helps with the mineralization of certain crops because enhance soil biological activity, and carbon sequestration is one of the practices, the consequence of humanity. So you can store carbon, and also enhance the protection of the soil, erosion, avoid erosion, climate regulation, and water quality. Okay, this is my farm. I don't know your names, but we are trying to be a farm. So we have been in our farm 5 years with Miguel. This is the situation where we are running our farm. It was abandoned land with a lot of grass, very difficult grass, brachiaria. And we decided to convert it into a cropping system. And we didn't want to use herbicide. So we did everything by hand, by machete. So you can see here, this is our Nelson that helped us with this transformation. So this is when we arrived. So we started to eliminate all these grasses. And the first thing that we did, we are in the tropics, okay, because we have a lot of trees, so we collect all the leaves and put it here. And then we were planting a lot of vegetation, trees, the fast-growing trees, Caliandra, or other trees that are very good in the follicular foliage. So we use that as a cover of the soil. So this was the starting point, and we started planting the fruit trees. So we have an orchard, different species of trees. And this is one of the, it was in, I think, 2020 when we started the planting. This is more than what we have. We didn't have ground cover. So we started to plant arachis, a cover that is very good because it fixes nitrogen. And now this is what we have right now. So the good thing is about arachis that cover the soil to avoid the weeds, but also it's very important to maintain the moisture. And the only thing that you have to do is to clean the base of the tree. Okay? This is just one example. Other people use this alley cropping with these trees that produce a lot of biomass. And this biomass, they chop this or prune this biomass and put it in the soil, because soils are very full, so we need to add a lot of biomass, a lot of organic matter. And here we have the crops, you can see. So the idea is to have plants that provide certain nutrients, like for example, Pitonian exfoliant provide a fossil, or you have trees that are going to fix nitrogen, legumes that are going to fix nitrogen, so important. Gliricidia, for example. And when you add this organic matter, say you are adding a percentage of organic matter, per 1% of organic matter that you add in the soil, you can storage 60 liters of water per square meter. So it means 167,000 liters that you are holding the water into the soil because you are enhancing the structure. So it's so important in a scenario of climate change. So the other thing is, this is a Roder Institute in Pennsylvania that they are doing a lot of research on organic versus conventional. And they did this experiment that I think is very good, because always the people that don't believe in this say, no, but it's conventional over here, it's better. But what happened in the scenario of climate change? This is cotton, corn, and you can see that the organic corn perform much better than the conventional in the scenario of climate change. Why? Because the management of the soil. And so one practice that we need to include always now with the scenario of climate change is that we cannot have bare soil. We need covered soil. Why? Because we need to conserve water. We cannot allow the evapotranspiration. So in many farmers are using different material, dead material or green manure, maintaining the cover like we do with arachis. And the other thing is to try to understand what is the role of these covers or the mulch that you are adding into the system, because there are mulches that provide nutrients and others that is just covering the soil to avoid evapotranspiration. But the role with the cover crops are, I'm sorry, this is in Spanish, but the idea is, okay, try to understand what kind of cover crop are you going to use and for what. For example, you want to increase soil fertility and you use legume. So legumes are very important because they have they release the nitrogen much as rapid than if you are using a gramineal, for example. Why? Because there are certain gramineals that are more slow because microorganisms are using the carbon for them and it takes more time. But also, if you, for example, send rye or different kind of wheat or different kind of straw that you are using, it takes more time in the composition. So the nutrients are for the plant, it takes more time. Or if you are using manure or you are using Visia, more quickly. And you can see here that is easy to understand. If you are using alfalfa, for example, the carbon nitrogen ratio is 13:1. So if you are using this, the plant can use the nitrogen quickly. So you can plant quickly after you incorporate this legume. But if you are using all straw, the carbon nitrogen ratio is higher. So it means that only here you can plant after 6 weeks after you down under. Okay, takes more time to disponibilize the nutrients. So I think this is very important. And in terms of indicators, we use visual indicators. If you're working with farmers and you need to know if you are in the right direction when you are adding organic matter, will be nice to have this simple example to see the aggregates. So you have 2 jars of water and you add different kind of soil that have a little organic matter for farmers that are doing the right practice compared with the conventional one. And you see if they maintain the aggregates. Okay. After certain hours, they maintain the aggregates. It means that they have high organic matter content compared with those soil that don't have organic matter. Dissolve very quickly. This is one way how you explain to farmers or to students to try to understand the aggregate. Because one thing, you have this structure, where you have this structure. Okay. If you have this structure, it rains, what happens with the nutrients? Origin, right? And all the water. You have this one because it's a clay soil, what happens? It rains, doesn't penetrate. So what we need is to create this structure that have these spaces that are air, but when rain, they storage here. Okay. So here you need to use a straw to start breaking this. And here you also need organic matter to create this space. So we cannot change the texture, the percentage of sand, limb, and clay, clay, but we can change the structure with the practice. So I think this is very important for farmers to know and to see how the system is changing over time. Or also another practice that we use, I show this methodology because I work a lot with farmers. So it's very important for them to see what we are doing. If the practice is really doing something. In order to evaluate the microbial activity, we put these tea bags. And we especially green tea, and we bury it in the soil, and then we return this and to see how was the decomposition of this. So it's one indicator. And also, if farmers apply manure as one way to add organic matter, manure not only have benefits on nutrients, but they have multiple benefits as a fertilizer. It enhances soil nutrients, and enhance the population of predators. Amazing, because sometimes they have cholesterol in the manure that serve as a neutralizer to support this population and reduce crop pests. And I don't know, many people now are talking about healthy soil all the time, but this is totally connected for healthy plants, but also for healthy fishes. So yesterday we were in Parma in a conference of ecological economics, and we ended up talking about human health. It's because they are very interested in markets and how people, consumers, support farmers. That is very, very important. But then it's very important to see that the people that eat organic food are more healthy. They develop different diseases than people that are eating very commercial and industrial food. You remember that I mentioned the cornification of the diet that is tied to different diseases in the United States. And now a lot of doctors are doing this kind of research, understanding agroecology and supporting each other. So we need a multidisciplinary team in order to scaling up all this approach. And there is one doctor in California, in San Francisco, in San Francisco campus. She has a book called Farm Ecology, and she has been doing research with kids that are fed with organic versus kids that with the conventional McDonald's, pizza, yeah, all these industrial, no pizza like the one that you have here, very good, but Pizza Hut, like all these kind of things that they eat in the schools sometimes, they have fast food compared with organic. At least in Berkeley, the schools have kids that eat organic in the school. But in other parts of northern part of California, they terrible food in school. And she did an experiment and demonstrated that kids that have fed with organic were less hyperactive and they have less amount of diseases than from the medical point of view, public health point of view. So I think this is the kind of this is the trend of the research in agroecology. But anyway, healthy soil, we start with healthy soil, healthy plants, and ended up with healthy humans. And for those who have kids, I think they are very interested to know how I'm going to use the kind of food that I'm going to give to my child. So this is what happened in the soil. So we have a soil organic matter that gives all the conditions for the bacteria, fungal feeding nematodes, predatory nematodes, and so on. All these good soil biology that are very important to maintain plant health. So for example, in the case of mycorrhizae, this is tomato. So you can see tomato without mycorrhizae is our control versus tomato with mycorrhizae. And you can see that even the phenology changes because this particular microorganism, is a fungi that this is the hair or the root hair. So plant can absorb the nutrients in the 2 millimeters. But once they have this association with the mycorrhiza, what they are doing is that they are exploring the nutrients 40 times. So they are looking for water. Mycorrhiza medicinary climate change is so important. They also protect against diseases. Very important. And the other thing that mycorrhiza does is they disponibilize host, as I mentioned before. So it's very important. And here you can see trichoderma, how, you infested the petri dish, more than me. But if you have trichoderma, you can see that what they are doing is a fungus that try to compete with the pathogen. So it's very important as a strategy to control. And you can see here how they colonize. Okay, trichoderma colonize the pathogen. Here is a list of pathogens in different crops and the microorganisms that suppress certain kind of pathogens and diseases. So probably Professor David or you here in the team know more than me, but this is the kind of approach that we are using to control disease. That's very important. And in terms of pests, you can see I mentioned, I think the first day, that when we have a fertilization with chemicals, we can have more pests in the case of certain crops, because this is the population of the pests in a system that is fertilized chemical compared with the organic. Why? Because the plant cannot assimilate the nitrogen in amino acid and protein, so there is a lot of nitrogen that is free in the foliage, so it needs a lot of this, and it starts to reproduce. Compared with the organic, that is slow release of this nitrogen. Okay, this is another experiment that is very, very nice, because, for example, what this student did was to collecting soil from conventional farm and organic farm. And she brought that to the greenhouse, she planted corn, and then she released the female of the European corn border and say, okay, let's lay eggs. So look where the insect was laying the eggs, in the plots or in the bases that have the soil from conventional farm versus the soil from organic farms. And then when you add ammonium nitrate, everything changed, because you add ammonium nitrate to all the bases. And here, if you add compost, this is what happens. So I think it's very important, at least, to understand that sometimes there are certain odors of the fertilizer that attract pests. Okay, these are the principles in terms of, I'm going to start saying all the principles to enhance soil biological activity, enhance control of diseases and pests, but let's summarize here the principles to increase soil biological activity, increase organic matter inputs, will result in more diverse microbial population and decrease the risk of diseases. Maintaining rotational diversity, including legume and brassica crops to break the diseases and to increase the diversity of organic residues. Reduce tillage to maintain condition of the soil and organic matter status to support greater diversity of organisms, and manage the soil cover to increase, to maintain the moisture. So there are different kinds of how we can diversify the system. For example, in the case of genetic diversity, we can use multi-lines and variety of mixtures. In terms of species diversity, we can use polyculture, crop rotation, cover cropping in orchards. We can use agroforestry system in the tropics, so according to, or even you can follow the agroforestry system if you have a cover and you have orchard in the forestry system. Or you can diversify the borders with hedgerows, hill margin, etc., and corridors. And rotation is one way how we break the cycle of pests and diseases. Here we cannot maintain the same family. But for example, in the first cycle, you can maintain the legumes, then you rotate with crops like onion, garlic, beets, and then fruits like tomatoes, cucumbers, peppers. The rotation in the vegetable garden is so important. So important to break cycle, but also to provide the conditions for the crop that is next. So this is just one example of crop rotation in a vegetable patch. So it depends what you need, but we need to plan ahead to see why we are doing this rotation and with what crops are we going to continue? The problem is, especially with farmers that are very specialized, they only want to grow tomato. They don't want to grow another crop. It is difficult. So we need to think in, okay, how we can organize the situation in a way that they can have certain benefits. And also your fumigation with the cruciferi are very good to control certain weeds, and because they have this chemical that isotocianato, that is kind of the fumigant, and then you can plant the crops. Okay, this is one strategy that many organic farmers now are doing. And another strategy that many farmers are doing, especially in California and Chile, you know, in the same kind of climate that you have, is mix of cover crops. So Vicia, different kind of, even fava beans, different kind of legumes that you use to enhance soil fertility. That is amazing. But other thing is too important to see when we are in the field, to see the rhizobium is active. So the color is, so you cut this rhizobium and see if they are active. With the color, we can figure out. And there are different kind of legume that we use in the cropping system that can fix up to 170 kilos of nitrogen per hectare. For example, arachis that we are using here, you can see arachis, the one that ground nut that we are using in our farm, it fixed 150 to 200 kilos of nitrogen per hectare. So we are adding the nutrient that the plants need. So I think it's very important to have this information in order to do the nutrient balance, because the soil is like a bank account. So you need to put a lot of nutrients because plants are taking the nutrients in certain periods. So we need to work in that sense. So the role of cover crops are many. So you can add nutrient with legumes. You can suppress certain cover crops, can suppress weeds. Certain cover crops also can suppress nematodes, like for example, marigold. It's very good for controlling nematodes. So you grow marigolds and then the allelopathic effect control nematodes, enhance infiltration, you name it. So there is so many. This is here, this picture is from here, from Italy. We took it several years ago, but you use a lot of oxygen. Okay. And the idea with the Fabino is not to incorporate, but leave it there, because when this is something new that people are doing a lot of research, demonstrating that it's better to allow the plant to die there, to just smash there, because the root is still alive and still releasing other nutrient or benefits, or not only nitrogen, because we always think that the legume is associated only to nitrogen, but they are associated with other substances that are very important for the growth of the companion or the crop. Okay, this is in terms of water infiltration, you can see that according to the different cover crop that you're using, so you have more infiltration rate. Another thing in scenario climate change, to think of what kind of cover is better in order to enhance. Okay, this is an example of how we can control weed. This is what farmers in the south of Brazil are doing. They use cover crops, but it's a cocktail of cover crops. They call cocktail. Okay, it's working. What we did was to understand how the system works. So what they are doing, they use 8 different species in the cocktail cover crop. What they are doing is planting the cover crop, and then they pass this roll of paca, it's a roller. I think you have the same here, you know, and they smash the cover crop. Oh. Okay, and then they enter and plant corn, you can see corn and beans. And here is the mulch, but you don't see weeds. Okay, so what do you think? Why do we don't have seeds here? Weeds. The mulch? what happened with the mulch and the weeds.
Question is the light.
But we have corn and beans. Okay, this could be one option. Okay, what else? What do you think the mulch have? Yeah, allelopathic effect, because in the mix that they have certain crops that have allelopathic effect, the rye, for example. So we had certain allelopathic activity that is produced here. And here is what we have the seed bank. Okay, but what farmers are doing this minute, because it's very interesting to understand this, because you say it's an allelopathic effect, like could be also allelopathic for corn and beans, no? But farmers are very smart, because what they were saying is that they were saying, it's tempting, it's hot, so they planted deeper. Look, this is what they did. So, I'm sorry, this is here. This is the allelopathic zone here. And here is where we have the seed bank. So what they are doing is they're planting corn and beans here. Because this allelopathic is only the first 5 centimeters, and not deeper. So we, with 3 students, master students that we did research, first of all, we identify which cover crops are the ones who have allelopathic effect. Because you don't need 9, or you need just rye or malaria, different crops that have the allelopathic effect. And the other thing, we need to understand this, talking with farmers. And they, when you want to say, oh, no, because it's tempting. Okay, now, so we as agroecology, we are behind farmers to understand where this is going. This is one example. But now many people are using, for example, crotalari. They plant crotalari with this purpose, and they use the roll of aca, or they use a trunking. Just slicing the and then this is in Brazil. They plant crotalari in purpose, and then they sow in sugarcane. And another strategy that is very important in order to control, in this case, diseases, as I mentioned, is genetic diversity. And this is in Chile, in Temuco area, where the indigenous people have these different varieties, tradition, wheat is not from Latin America, but they have these all varieties. And they kept these varieties, and they are planted together. Answering your question, because they harvest by hand, they don't harvest by machinery. But now they have the market. You know, the pasticceria, yeah, the local bread making bread, very special bread. I love this kind of grain, so because it's a mix, and they have the market. And you know, but this is not new. This is people from the Eastern Europe that were doing this kind of mix, different varieties to control mildew, for example. If they have just monoculture, this is how the disease spread compared when they have multi-lines, you know, to control mildew. So it's the kind of research that we need to do again, because it was a long time ago. And this is a Professor Xu from China, and I think this is very, very interesting, because many people think that agroecology is just for half an hectare in Latin America, for food farmers in Africa, producing for agriculture. And I think we need to demonstrate that these approaches can be applied with big farmers. And he created this intercropping system that is very, very interesting to control. So what they are using to control diseases, what they are using is basically tall varieties and low varieties. And you can see here that these tall varieties create microclimatic conditions to avoid sometimes certain kind of diseases. You know, when you discuss the disease triangle. And also they have they create the condition also to release certain nutrients that are very important. But in this intercropping system of potatoes with corn, it's very interesting because they were able to reduce Phytophthora infestan that that is one of the major problems in potatoes. And this paper was published in Nature. So it is very well high impact. And so for us, it was a very nice surprise when we saw this. And anyway, so in Latin America, and as I started all this with milpa because we had learned a lot about milpa, you can see that why farmers are using milpa or diversified systems is because the variability in yields are lower than in a monoculture. Look what happened, for example, when we have cassava with beans compared with the monoculture. The variability is lower, means that they don't expect problems in the future compared with, for example, when we have cassava with maize, lower, in this case, cassava, maize, and beans. And this is literature from the 80s. The problem now is that most of the grassroots, I don't think, yes, the latest literature, and they are forgetting about the old literature that where we have the principle. So Charles Francis did this research in Colombia, in Seattle. And it was now, I always present this data because it's so important that people recognize this kind of knowledge. And also when we have this diversity, we have different, the idea to diversify the system with other plants is because we are looking for facilitation process, resource sharing in terms of nutrients in the soil, and complementarity. So we need to think, okay, what plant are we going to use to have complementarity or to facilitate fixed nitrogen through legumes. This is an example of fava bean with corn that we always think that is just nitrogen. That fixing nitrogen is legume fixing nitrogen. But this research demonstrates that when we have this monoculture of maize and fava bean, maize over yield 43%, and fava 26% when they are intercrop because the nitrogen is rich, but also putting in phosphorus. But fava, this is why it's very important to give fava, the roots alive, because fava exudates organic acids and promote to acidify the rhizosphere and mobilize the phosphorus that is that plant cannot obtain in this particular case. So this one is another research that I think is very interesting to try to understand the complexity of this. Okay, this also in terms of weeds, the competition, as he was saying, there is no light. And you can see here, this is in Colombia, there are certain weeds that, but for example, you can see here the biomass that usually when we have this system, this is the biomass of weeds when we have a monoculture of sorghum, for example, compared with sorghum. This is the effect on grain. When we have sorghum with a cowpea, fodder cowpea, look, the cowpea is controlling. So it's kind of the way how we are using arachis. Sorghum, this is fodder cowpea, this is grain cowpea. Look, it's more or less similar. And this is with mango bean. You can see that the biomass is less. But look the yield of sorghum in these cases are higher than in a monoculture. Okay, because we create the conditions for them. And this is the other indicator that is very important is the land equivalent ratio. Explain why the polyculture over yield, as I was explaining before. For example, this is the yield of corn in a monoculture, 4,000 kilos per hectare. And being in a monoculture is 1,000 kilos per hectare. But in a polyculture, corn has 3,000 kilos and beans 750. You just look at the table, you think that is very bad. The numbers are high. But you don't see just this, because in the polyculture you are overlapping, you are using the resources. So we use a very simple formula, that is the yield of the crop corn in a polyculture over the monoculture. Same with beans, polyculture over the monoculture of beans. So you add this and you have this value, 1.5. Okay, means that you need 1.5 hectares of the monoculture to produce the same amount of products that you produce in the polyculture. You are using less land. This is one argument for presenting when people are arguing that monoculture are over here, you need to present this indicator. Okay, sugarcane. Sugarcane, at least in my country, is taking a lot of land, but in the monoculture, using a lot of pesticide, all the problems that you can name it about industrial agriculture, we have it. However, we have a farm that has been doing agriculture for more than 30 years, and it's like a laboratory for us. We are doing a lot of research there. And what they are doing is they are using green manure in the crop. So you can see here that this is the sugarcane, but before they, grow very fast and close, they plant a green manure. And you can see that this green manure, before they, the sugarcane close, they cut and then they start to decompose there. So we have time we use better the land and we are adding another nitrogen. I'm going to show and also they have this chip that they enter into the streets or I don't know, between fields. And these play a very important role in controlling. So you can see what they have. This is animal integration. And also they sell these animals, so they try to combine all the activities. I'm talking here about a farm that has 300 hectares. In Colombia, it's a big farm, 300 hectares. And they have been doing this 30 years as we call lighthouse, agroecological lighthouse. And okay, here is the data, because they are comparing with the neighbors. They have conventional neighbors. So here you can see that they obtain 2.7 tons of sugarcane per kilogram of nitrogen that they are adding with the green manure. Compared with the conventional farm, they obtain only 0.6 tons of sugarcane per kilo of nitrogen chemical fertilizer. So they are much more efficient in the tons of sugar produced per kilogram of nitrogen than they are. Okay. So it's kind of, we need to do this kind of research to demonstrate others that they are losing the money. It's very expensive at the same time, but you need to have the time to decide and the knowledge what kind of cover crop they are using. And this is the outcome of the conversion in this particular farm. They have they add more 28 tons per hectare per year, more over yield. They are increasing 4% organic matter from 1 to 4, even less than 1 the neighbors. And they also are enhancing the water quality capacity. And they are using less irrigation, 66% less irrigation. You know how much does it cost? So they are saving money. And they also have less damage of the atrea, that is the main pest in sugarcane. And they have 54 different species of spiders, and there are more than 28 different species of ants that play the role of biological control. They have an amazing data, beautiful data.
But I think this is what many people is interested on the cost of production. Look, this is the profit. They are saving money. So they have less land than the neighbors, but they are more profitable than the neighbors. And they sell the sugarcane as conventional because so they go to interiors and they don't pay fair if they have organic. So they need a special market, but it's so difficult in that part of Colombia. But they are very, I can say, very happy with the results, and also it became for us a lighthouse. So many students are doing they are open the doors to do research over there. And these are the benefits. So I think the revenue is higher and the cost of production, they reduce the cost of production. So they reduce the cost of production. And when you don't have debt, you are making money. You don't have to pay the debt. And in terms of animal products, because I know I'm biased because I'm an agronomist, so sorry for those students that have more approach on animal production. We are working on the silvopastoral system. And also in this particular farm, they have animals for the production of milk, double purpose. And they are using silvopastoral system that combine fodder plant, grasses, and legumes, and also trees that animal can bruise. They use leucaena, for example. And in this particular system, they use less antibiotics. And they also have research that demonstrated that they produce less methane. Methane. That is one of the gases that create anyway, so this is another farm in Colombia. This is in north part Colombia, Atlantic, the Caribbean. The Caribbean. And you can see here in 2005, it was cattle ranching, one animal per hectare, very inefficient, and no diversity. And this is 2010, but you can see that they create the silvopastoral system. And I show this one, this is like, I think on Monday, but in this condition, the temperature is 2 or 3 centigrades higher than here, that we have more relative humidity and less evapotranspiration. So the animal condition is very good, and the production is, look, this is one example of the conversion. It started in 2006, and this was like this, cattle ranching. And this is the production of biomass. This was in January, in August, we have the first grazing. The animal started like this in April 2006. Look, the condition, animal condition. But the most important indicator is the current capacity. Here is one animal, 1.2 animals per hectare. Here you can have 5.1 animals, big animals. And they produce, in this particular case, they produce 1.7 liters of milk per cow per day. Very inefficient, compared here that they increase the production of 4 liters. And this is the case of in Argentina. In Argentina, a guy that is the owner of North Place. Anyway, he was from California. Unfortunately, he passed away, and he was a rich guy. He decided to get on this approach, and he bought the heritage of conventional transgenic soybean production, totally deforested, degraded, you name it. And he converted he invited a team to design the farm. So this is what we did together, because so he started to recover these corridors, and he wanted to have animals, but also fruit trees. And this is how it started to change. So this very beautiful transformation. And when you have, I'm talking about 1,000 hectares. So it's not small. And so one way is to have seed problem. Okay. use machinery. And okay, and this is another thing. This is a picture that I took from the books, in the library, and this is what in the United States they used to have forever. Okay, this is raw barley protected to protect lettuce. It was when the mainly to protect against the soil erosion, the wind erosion, the soil. So they wanted to protect the main crop, and they have this strict cropping also. So it's a matter to return to this approach. But industry wanted to maintain the status quo, so the majority of this big industry don't want to do this again. And this is an example from Chile, central Chile, near Santiago, 1 hour from Santiago, is how we can diversify a farm to feed a family of 5. So we did all the research. You can see here that is half an hectare. It's divided in 6 plots that you have 1 cow that rotate in this direction, and these plots are with vegetable crops. So the idea, and surrounding, we planted a lot of fruit trees. So the idea was to demonstrate that it's possible to produce. You can see here the rotation produced 3.16 tons. Home garden produced 1 ton of products, fruits 0.783, eggs 2,000 eggs. So a family of 5 don't need everything, so they can feed themselves, but also they can have and sell certain products. And you can see that the production cost is more or less $700 a year, but the income that the family receives is $1,600. That is a lot for the family to buy, and also once you start the ecological infrastructure, so all the ecological facilities started to work for you, and you can even work outside. And also all the vitamins that you can produce in these diversified systems, so are very, very good. And this is another example from Cuba. Cuba suffered a lot during the collapse of the Soviet Union, so they were depending on pesticides from Soviet Union. Once they collapsed, they didn't have any chemical. So before, this is the farm of one of my students. She did the training with me. It's her parent and her brother. This is how they started. It was conventional farm, and they were planting only a few crops, mainly tobacco. And look at the reference. This is before and this is after, how they develop or redesign the farm in a way that they can have animals. They change everything by need, because they didn't have tractors, they didn't have petroleum, they didn't have pesticides. So, and lady, my student, did the research on her farm, and she demonstrated, since they arrived, the production was like this, but depending on the pesticides. And then during the transition, the dependency on inputs now is very low, and the production dropped, but later it recuperate. And this is the yield, tons per hectare per year. But I think this is the most important thing of her research. They have 10 hectares. They can feed, give food for protein because they have animals. They can feed 11 people per energy per hectare. Yeah. And I don't know, with 11 with energy crops, 11 people, but they can feed 34 people per hectare per year. And they have 10 hectares, so they can feed 340 people. But the most important indicator is this one, energy efficiency. There it means that for each kilocalorie that they put with animal traction or with human work, labor, they receive 10 back. So they are very efficient. In the Midwest of the United States, the energy efficiency is 2. So this one is 15 times more efficient than conventional agriculture. And I think one aspect that is important is to look in the territory. As I mentioned, we have very good examples of the farm level. They are very sustainable. They are promoting agriculture, but they are in the middle of a very degraded landscape. So we are working in this approach of resilient agri landscape or agroecological restoration. So we are working together in order to create this area of research, and especially in the context of climate change. Okay, so I'm going to present the example here. Here. So we work. This is in Colombia, and this is in '92. The community didn't have water, only water for 20 families because it was totally deforested water. So what they decided was to start planting trees in the watershed to recuperate the water. So you can see the point of reference. So this is 2001, how they started to plant trees, 2014, and this is 2020. So what they did, they bought together as a community 14 hectares, and they started to plant the trees. They planted more than 21,000 trees, and they started to restore 3 micro wetlands. So now, in this particular position, they have water for more than 80 families. So you can see the benefit of the ecological restoration in this particular case. But what happened with the farms? So here, for example, in this particular farm, we have 2.5 hectares of aracacha. Aracacha is like a carrot that we eat in Colombia, but it creates a lot of problem with soil erosion. So you can see here, a lot of soil erosion. They were conventional, so he decided to change their system, try to avoid erosion. So he started to create these corridors with Titonium to reduce the soil erosion. And once he established the Titonium, he decided to change crop. So he started to plant coffee. So you can see he started with coffee, but before coffee started to grow, he started to plant beans and maintaining the barriers with flowers that attract beneficial insects, and also banana plantains and different crops until they have now the coffee. Now they are protecting. You can see here how he's protecting the watershed, and this is more or less what the farmers look with the drone. That is very important. How you can recuperate the landscape and also do the transition. So you can see that the transition of how we are increasing, moving from integrated pest management, the first stage, then organic farming, more like releasing natural elements or buying input from outside, up to arriving to agroecology. That now there's more awareness, more people want to do this. And so we need to change the indicator that we're using. Okay? Because sometimes we look just for yield and it doesn't work. And we need to see the total output per hectare and indicators like LAIR that demonstrate the efficiency in use of resources and the ecosystem services and so on. Let me show you this example from England, because we were in a conference where green conference in agroecology, and one of the farmers that were in the audience said, I wanted to invite you to my farm. Okay, go. And he said, I didn't know that I was doing agroecology, but I have some of the practices that he had. And look, this is his farm. This is the woodland proteins. It has a lot of field margins. Anyway, so let me show you more or less what he was doing. He had this Facilia, the corral. It's a long-term beetle bank, very good for predators. He also had short-term beetle banks with alfalfa. And also he protects the edges. That was very important. So you're going to see in my other presentation, I don't know if we have time, but I will start it. He has this as a refuge for habitat for other beneficial insects. And anyway, so this is the way how we find so many farmers. Probably here also you can find farmers that are doing the right thing. It's a matter of how we find them, how we work with them, how we do research with them. I know last time we were discussing here, because you were not here, but we were discussing like you have certain difficulties probably done. But for us, it was a very nice surprise. It's kind of, and there are many. So I already talked about the problem with the simplified systems, even organic. This is avocado production in Chile, organic. This is organic grape production in Chile. And so what we need is to, in the last stage, system redesign is what I'm going to show. And also because my research is basically on this stage, how we can diversify the system to reduce pest problem. In my particular case, I have to say that we don't design the farm just to control pests. So we need to think more holistic approach. And so the idea is to prevent colonization of pests, increase stability, and promote biological control. And one indicator that we use when we start this kind of research is to the agroecological structure of the farm. Okay? Do we have diversity? We don't, even if it is organic, and how we achieve in this. This is a methodology that a professor from Colombia is doing with his PhD student that come out with an indicator, an index of the agroecological structure that is very important. And as I was saying, we work in these two principles of biodiversity above and below ground. So now I'm going to concentrate above. But as an entomologist, we also think that we have to enhance population of natural enemies above. But sometimes it is very important to know that certain insects like Colembula serves as a neutral insect that are going to maintain the population of natural enemies. So everything is connected, below ground and above ground. And with the conversion, we need to start slowly, especially with farmers. So because they need to see the benefits of the conversion and the practice. So we start at the plot level with different practices that not only affect pests or reduce pests, but also have benefits on nutrients, soils, and pollination. And there are many strategies, as you can see here. But the idea is to move from the plot to the field and to landscape. So once you know that the practice is performing well and you are reducing the pest problem, farmers are more comfortable to do the transition in the whole farm. Okay. So it's a process of knowledge and confidence. And understand this by interaction. I think they already talked, and we work mainly in this concept of functional biodiversity. And this responsive biodiversity that is more like in a scenario of climate change, the whole hypothesis that is redundant biodiversity, this is the one that we are going to discuss. So I will be very happy if you understand the functional biodiversity, what are the components, know what kind of function this component play, and then decide what kind of practice are you going to use. And the idea is to enhance this functional biodiversity in the case of predators, pollinators, and parasitoids. And we are doing a lot of research in biodiversity conservation and management, but in order to increase the capacity of the self-regulatory capacity of natural production systems. And as I showed before, we need to move from this to complex system. But this is the challenge, how we ensemble this biodiversity to maintain the positive interaction and the synergies, and at the end, the healthy agro-ecosystem. And during the conversion, well, the first thing that we need to do is bring with the earth. This is the first thing that we need to do. Given the opportunities to beneficial interaction to stay, and also to allow the presence of the benefits. So more beneficial interaction, higher resource use efficiency, and also other benefits associated with the production system. So these are kind of the transition stages. So we start adding diversity in species and composition and abundance. That's very important in the design. The complexity started to be more complex, the system, as the biodiversity is increasing. But I think one aspect that is important in the research is to identify the functionality and the characteristics of the operation that is in the farm. So there are different kinds of diversification strategies that I wanted to present to you. Example, polyculture, rotation, intercropping, that have multiple benefits. And because, let's say with weeds, many people think that I'm crazy when I say you can diversify your system with weeds. Obviously, not at the level that the weeds are going to compete with your crop, but the level where weeds can play an ecological role. And you need to know what is the role that it's going to play. Because here, for example, the weed is not competing with the crop. The first third of the period of the crop needs to be free of weeds. Established, they are not going to compete. And this will give you more opportunities for natural enemies. So we need to identify the role of weeds as a trap crop or weeds that have a certain odor that the insect don't like, or weeds that provide pollen and nectar that serve as a food for natural enemies. And so, for example, this is in Mexico that I found this example from Pesen. They allow looping in the system. Why? Because looping, if they have a sense that it's macrodactylus starving beetle, the beetle prefer to stay in the looping than in the corn. So this really serves as a trap crop. What farmers are doing is just cutting and burning outside. I'm not saying that everybody has to say the same, but me as an entomologist, we need to stay there and understand why the insect prefer that plant than the corn. Okay? I didn't do anything, but this is an example. This is another example that I found in Brazil, the south of Brazil. So farmers are growing cabbage with sugar beet as an intercrop, and in purpose, at the end of the row, they plant wild brassica. And look, they are from the same family, but the wild brassica is totally attacked by Chrysomelis beetle and also by Pieris. Pieris is a Lepidoptera, insect that attack cabbage. So when I saw this, I said, I have to do something. So I did the same experiment. I planted the same in California. And the only thing that I did was a bromatological analysis of the two plants, of the cabbage and the wild brassica. And the wild brassica have 6 times more essential oils than the cabbage. So the insect prefer to feed on this one than the cabbage. It's more gustosa. How do you say it? Better. Oh, okay. Same. And many people, for example, what they are doing as a trap crop, they are using squash surrounding your garden or your vegetable garden with squash, because Chrysomelis beetles prefer squash around the crop. They are polygamous. And many people argue to me that, okay, but probably they move to the garden. But the thing is, with the strategies, you need to have all the strategies together, because you are not only relying on this trap crop, but you also rely on beneficial insects. So you are going to have like an army of natural enemies and also all the strategies that in order to reduce the pest population. The other thing is that, for example, in the case of canola, many farmers in Canada and in California, in the United States, they are planting wild brassica on purpose. And many people, and they need to plant 20% of the crop area, but need to be planted 20 days earlier. So many people say, no, but it's 25 of the land. Yeah, but how much does it cost? The control. So you need to put this in balance. But many farmers are doing this. And the other thing is, I don't know if you're familiar, many people in organic agriculture are using botanical insecticide and extracts of different products. The problem is that they are broad spectrum. So you can kill the pest, but you also kill beneficial insects. So one thing that we are doing is using the volatiles of certain crops that repel pests, but as a companion plant. For example, here we use onions. Our main crop is broccoli. So here the spring onion are used as a repellent to take the insect away. And we are now reducing the population of beneficial insects with botanical insecticide. So the other thing is using weeds as a repellent. So we need to know what substance these weeds have. For example, in this particular case in Colombia, we have two grasses, Leptochlora leucine indica, that have certain volatiles that the pests don't like. In this particular case, Empoasca, that is a leafhopper. And we did this because we were observing that near these weeds, there were no pests. And in the monoculture, so we did an experiment that any kid from high school can do it. You know, monoculture surrounding with these grasses and a monoculture and counting the bag. And you can see here the population of the leafhopper in the monoculture of beans compared when we have these borders. So the insects don't want to enter because they don't like the odor. Or other people are using different crops like capsidium, allium, as I mentioned before. And it's very important because now the market, this is organic. It doesn't look like an organic farm, but the market now are selling little tea bags with the methylsilicato. And this, it helps beneficial insects to find the host. So it's another input that they need to buy from outside. And what we are doing is try to find plants that help beneficial insects to find the host. And there is a huge range of research that we can do and we need to do. And I encourage the students, if you want to continue with your PhD, please do this kind of research that we need. So there are many beneficial interactions in semi-natural that we can use the borders, understand the ecology of the beneficial insect, what do they like, what do they prefer, what kind of habitat they prefer. Sometimes the weeds serve as a habitat for them in the case of lady beetles. If we have lacewind, we need trees or shrubs that are more bigger than the weeds. But anyway, there is a lot of information on that and the interaction that we can learn. And this I already showed. So there are many experiences in functional biodiversity that is important, but in terms of weeds, I say that also can provide pollen and nectar. But the problem is that you can allow to bloom, but you cannot allow to seed. So farmers are always busy, so they need to cut and they don't have time. So you better not to allow the weeds to use weeds as a resource for natural enemies. So it's better to plant flowers. And why? Because beneficial insects need pollen and nectar for the reproduction. So they need proteins and minerals and sugars that certain flowers have better conditions for the cell capacity and the reproductive activity. So this is just one example of one farmer in Colombia. Here, he's a peasant. He went to, even he didn't go to elementary school, but it's amazing how he got all the agricultural principles in place. It's his farm. He has more than 20 different species. He has flowers. He understands everything. Anyway, so this is the design of production in California, where we are trying to break the monoculture, organic farm, breaking the monoculture with diversity. You can see here the example, but I'm going to present the sample later. This is with Professor Ratten in New Zealand, when he's using Phacelia in the borders of wheat. And you can see here You maintain the machinery because you cannot do other things, but you can use the borders, and you can see the population of aphids when you don't have the Facilia and when you have the Facilia. Facilia increase the population of circuit flies that are very good to control aphids. This is California. So in vegetable production, what we are doing is using Lowlaria maritima. Alyssum. It's a plant that is naturalized everywhere, that attract a lot of beneficial insects. They have a good quality in the pollen. And so we break the monoculture with this, but we need this corridor to remain there when you harvest. Because the beneficial insects are going to move to this corridor, they are going to feed on other neutral insects. They have habitats, they have pollen, they have nectar. And then when you come and plant the other crop, and the pests started to arrive, this is when beneficial insects are good, because the biological control only act at the lower level of the pest. You have high population of the pest, you pretend that you are going to release natural, it doesn't work like that. But this corridor need to remain there. And also, this is urban agriculture. I'm going to present the examples of urban agriculture where you also can apply the principle. This is in Berkeley. I don't know if you visit this, but this is a Trigo serraceno, Fagopirum, that is very good to attract beneficial insects, the diversity, and so. Okay, this is an example that I wanted to show because this is California. This is organic industry. This is airbound. They sell the pre-washed lettuce. They are specialized in lettuce. So we can say, okay, diversify. No, they want to grow lettuce. That's it. So you need to work. But they allow us, they call us because they wanted to diversify the system. So we were thinking, okay, how? The first thing is to know what are the talon de Achilles, what are the main problems. So Lepidoptera pests, and they also have aphids. And let's say the main pests. So we decided to create the corridors with Alyssum. The question is, how far do I need? How many corridors do I need? How big is the farm? Why? What distance are we going to plant this? So Lepidoptera pests have a lot of beneficial insects that are wasps. They can fly up to 100 meters, 50 meters. So this corridor we planted every 100 meters in order to provide the conditions that they need. So the hypothesis was, okay, they have the resources here, so they are moving from here to there, and I want to control the pests. And we choose Alyssum because it's very good to attract predators, but also very good for beneficial, for parasitoids that fly longer distance. Okay. The phenology of the flower is an issue. Okay. Because if I want to attract, let's say, Trichogramma, that is a parasitoid of eggs of Lepidoptera, I cannot use this flower of Facilia. Why? Because this insect is very difficult to see. You need a stereoscope. So they don't have the ability to push the stem and get this nectar. It's very good for syrphid flies, but not for this. So be careful with what kind of flower are you putting in your system. And the other thing is the quality of the nectar. So this is a research that I did a long time ago, but it's still important. Because, for example, in terms of pneumonia, as a parasitoid, they live longer. So the survival is like 45 days if you have bagweed than if you don't have anything. You have organic farm and you release the natural enemy, they die in 2 days. And what you need is that work for you and increase the survival according to the floristic resource. So there are different kind of plants and that I have in one book that we can share with the group. We did a list of flowers for California, but for farmers over there, but you can look for the families and look what kind of native flower do you have here that provide a good quality and also an arrangement that provides the condition for variety of. This is the flour that we are using in vineyards in California. And this is part of my book. Okay, another way to diversify the system. So professor, allow me to go until 11, 12, 15, is okay? Okay, thank you. So I'm going to run.
Take your time.
I'm sorry.
Take your time.
Anyway, so polyculture, as I mentioned, is a way to diversify the system. And there are so many complex interactions that happen in the polyculture. But in our book with Miguel, we have a book called Bioelectric and Waste Management, that was Italian, who get it. We try to understand why the polyculture will have less problem than monoculture. And there are two hypotheses. The resource concentration hypothesis. So here we have just a monoculture, and the pests know the color and the odor of the crop that they like. So immediately have high hatch, they are ripe. But if you have polyculture, it will be very difficult for them to find the host or the plant. And the other hypothesis is the natural enemies. Here we have the infrastructure, ecological infrastructure, habitat, pollen, nectar that they need. So population increase, they maintain the pests in check. These are how we try to think. And look what happened in real world. We found this farmer in Costa Rica. That even they were the challenge, the International Center of Research in Costa Rica. And because the entomologists in Costa Rica, they say it was forbidden to grow tomato because the problem of whitefly that transmit virus. Okay, so with Miguel, we were visiting farmers, and we arrived to this farmer that were planting tomato. But it's very difficult to see the tomato. Look, here is the tomato. He was planting tomato with cilantro here. Okay, so think about the first hypothesis. So if I have whitefly, it's easy for me to find the tomato. When it's a monoculture of tomato, the color and the odor, and they have a composite eye, so they see more than us, so they identify the green that they need. But when this is with cilantro, cilantro is hiding the tomato, so the whitefly cannot find the tomato. And then the farmer said that he is going to ready to harvest cilantro. So instead of having only tomatoes, you have two crops. Economically speaking, it's good. But also he's going to allow, once he harvests the cilantro, he's going to leave 1 or 2 plants of cilantro. Cilantro is an umbellifera. And umbellifera is going to attract beneficiaries and going to control all the pests that he has. So I say to Miguel, this farmer served a non-honorary PhD. He has everything that we have in our book by trial and error. He wanted to grow tomatoes, so he was trying with many things. Okay, so this is the kind of thing, as an entomologist, I don't know, Professor, if you are the same, but as an entomologist, I was trained to solve pest problems. If I arrive to this farmer and ask, you have pests? He said, no. As an agroecologist, we have to stay there. Try to understand why he doesn't have pests. This is our laboratories, where we learn and we explain and we do research with them for other people that don't have that knowledge, that don't have this innovation, what we can do. Push-pull system is another example. I imagine you know. It's a design that creates systems that push the pests but attract beneficial insects. They use Napier and Sudan grass in the borders, and also the smolium, that is a legume that takes nitrogen, but also suppress the striga, that is the weed, and also increase they can feed the animal. So for every $1 that they invest in this design, they take $2.30 back. So I think the economic analysis is also very important for farmers because they are afraid to invest. And there are so many push-pull systems, even with sorghum, with millet, with rice. Okay, in terms of genetic diversity, it's also very important to diversify. I already showed this slide, but In terms of species diversity, this is one design of split cropping. This is in Iowa, for example, this one that I mentioned. So instead of having only corn, they have strips of corn and soy. They don't share the same pest, so it's one way how you break the cycle of pests. Also the rotation, and also the corn, avoid the dispersion of the pest from one to another field. This is cotton in California, organic cotton. So we are planting alfalfa. So many people could say, why alfalfa? Because alfalfa serves as a trap room for lilies, the chinche, as a bug that attack a corn. Because it's an annual crop, so we are moving the alfalfa every year. We are planting this every 100 meters because it's mainly to attract, to move better. Alfalfa have very good nectars for pollinating, for wasps. So very good qualities. So this is we are planting this every 100 meters. This is the book of Professor Rattin, so you know, with ground beetles. This is the bank, ground beetle bank with grasses. You saw the picture of the English farmer with Phacelia or with alfalfa. Very important. You can see that they are concentrated here in the wheat bed, and once you plant the wheat, they started to walk. Oh, sorry. Okay, this is one of the farms that I show in Laguna Blanca with another stage. This is England with corridors. You can see that they plant corridor for different flowers in the middle of the system. And this is part of my research vineyards. Most of the organic vineyard, the summer, no covered crop. So it's like a virtual monoculture. So my challenge was to have summer cover. So we use buckwheat and we use alisun to promote biological controls. And all the benefits of cover crop we already say about soil structure, soil fertility, but I was more interested in pest management. And there are different kinds of cover crops according to you need for structure, for fertility, but the idea was this is what they are using regularly, mix of different cover crops, oats, beige in the early in the spring, and then they started to increase the population of organic cover crops. This is what they have, you know, wild brassica, and they incorporate this, and then we have monoculture. So what I did was to have a mix of cover crop, Phagopyrum, and then with sunflower. So we guarantee that we have the resource for natural elements in the vineyard. Early in the season, this was the one that was blooming, and then later in the season was sunflower. And very important to plant them the right time, because if you plant the cover crop here, probably it's too late when the population of the pest is so high. So you can see here the difference when I'm talking here about an organic vineyard, 400 hectares. They gave us 5 hectares to do the redesign and to show them the difference. Look, they have, this is the level of the population of the pests, the farmers management, and this was the hours. It didn't reach the economic threshold. But we were very happy with the result the first 2 years. But in the cover, there was so much food that the insects didn't want to move to the vine. And we needed it in the vine. So what we did, we cut the cover crop. But you need to be very careful because you need to cut the cover crop when there is adults of the leafhopper laying eggs. Because the main prey is parasitoid of eggs. So we did that. And you can see here, before mowing, this is the population of the pet. 1 week after, look, 2 weeks after how we reduced, we were able to reduce the population of the pests dramatically. And this is the population of the parasitoid. Look, before mowing, 1 week after they were in the vines where we need it. So here the input is the management. You need to be, it's like a relojero. How do you say relojero? The one that works in the wash. They need to know where they need to fix. This is agroecology. Agroecology need to know where do need to cut the cover crop in order to. And many farmers now are doing that. For example, this is another vineyard where they have drip, because in the previous we don't have drip. We have 24 hours sprinkling irrigation, and this one had drip, so we use the drip to plant the alison, and here is fagopirum. And also, as you can see, we were comparing the farmers management with buckwheat. This is the abundance of spiders, and different examples how farmers are increasing using flowers during the summer. And this was kind of the challenge that we have. How to propose a full season blooms sequence of different plants, and this is what we did with these flowers. So we have kind of more or less what we need to plant in the fall, winter, spring, early summer, and late summer. And you can see the transition. We were using cicuta or wild dacus. They're very drought tolerant. So late in the summer, we are going to have only that one. But it's the result that farming with the beneficial insect needs are there. So these are the beneficial insects that we attract. So many farmers are using this strategy, especially in the north part of California. They are using hedgerows also to beautify the landscape, because many tourists come to this place. And so this is the vineyard that I was working with cover crops. And they used to have this riparian forest. So they say, okay, why don't we check the riparian forest? What is that? What kind of beneficial insects they have? And we saw that they have a lot of predators, but predators are walking. They don't fly too much. So they walk up to 25 meters. Okay? So if you have a vineyard that big, you cannot stay with this diversity, not enough. So what we did, you can see, here is near the forest, the population, so away from the forest, the population of beneficial insects decrease. So we create this corridor. Beautiful. So the owner bought the idea because they wanted to beautify the system. So we have different plants here that we observe what kind of flowers apply more beneficial insects. The only thing that I said, okay, we need different plants, we need that they grow in different periods, we need that they have the pollen exposed, so the landscape designer create this beauty corridor. And my hypothesis was, okay, they were here, this is like a highway for beneficial insects, they are going to enter here and colonize the bean. Okay, this is what we did, and look, this is the population of leafhover. Away from the corridor, the population of the pests happened to be. Near the corridor, it was in check, because beneficial insects move back and forth in 25 minutes. So this research tells us that we need to do another diversity up to 50 minutes. Another corridor, it's very expensive. So we can have corridor, or even a line of cicuta or wild brassica. So many farmers now are doing this to beautify the system. And this is a farmer that came to the field day that I did, the first vineyard, and he became in love with what we did. He said, I have 40 hectares. Let's create a rich guy. Let's make a team of people to create vineyards or agroecological vineyards from scratch. So we were a team of like 15 people working with him, people that know about the terroir, they were like what kind of varieties. They have olives, they have different varieties of vineyard or grapes, and all they recycle all the water, all the pruning that they do, and they gave me an island, because a place where they cannot grow anything, so I created like an island. I couldn't do any corner so we create this island, and the idea was to monitor what happened with this island. And you can see that I call insectary, and you can see near an insectary, we have less problem of trips near the vineyard than far away from the island. And the population of Oreos, coccinelles, syrphys were very high in nearby. The most interesting thing that I found is that certain group of insects move in different period of the season. So at the beginning, for example, many Oreos and coccinelles, late the season, and adults, a parasitoid. And this is another example from Chile, in Arándanos, in blueberries, 5 hectares also. It's 1,000 hectares of blueberries, organic, and they gave us 5 hectares to do something different to control pests here. So the main problem that they have weeds and Curculionic weed. So weeds, we use dry allelopathic effects. So we create this biomass, and with this tractor we cut the cover crop and leave it as a mulch. And I'm sorry, and for the Curculionic beetle, you need to know the life cycle. Where do they lay eggs? And the larva is the one that passes the larva. So we need to attack in the state of autumn. But it's so difficult with predator because it's very hard. We use microbial entomopathogens. They work injecting microbial fungus into the soil, metaregional. We use many things. To make the story short, the best thing that worked were chickens. So, but we need to use it after harvest, but it was a pastor with a stick. They were moving the blueberries, and the beetle went down, and the chicken were very happy. Anyway, so this is what happened with the story. And there are many examples. These are from Cuba. Okay, to finish, I can say that high diversity in the landscape provides enough habitat for beneficial insects, but there are places where we have low diversity, so we need to create this, but for that we need territories that agroecological territories that decide, okay, here we are not going to apply pesticides, everybody is going to do this. Training is very important. I finished with this slide that more or less what we started with at the beginning with the conversation of the role of biodiversity, the plant biodiversity, what the farmer wants to do, come the associated biodiversity, entomofauna, and if they have the surrounding environment in good way. So the conclusion, avoiding monoculture, we need spatial and temporal diversity, genetic diversity, habitat for beneficial insects, and enrich the surrounding. And this is the book that I'm going to send to the professor daily. This is what the list of plants that probably will be usable. And the other two, you can, they're online, so you can download it. Thank you. I don't know if there are questions or comments. I know that you are hungry and you have started, but if you have questions, let me know. I will be very happy to answer.
During the vineyard, with the cover crop in summer, in many places, in many big areas, in summer there is not much water, and there is competition for water with the cover crop. So
same in California. California is the same climate, and there is no water, there is no rain in the summer. So this is why you need to look for summer cover crops that are ground for example, in the case of sunflower with the 24-hour sprinkling irrigation, and was able to.
but then you need irrigation.
No. They just put 24 hours in the whole summer. One. That's it. And then we got the battery with the first rain of the spring, so we can bloom early, and then. And in the case of drip irrigation, you see, we put alisum, the drip. So there is just the residual water that they are having for the vineyard, and also that escalota, they don't need water, groundwater. The only thing that you can do is just have an island, little islands that you take the drip and provide just a little water for this plant to bloom. So the idea is to look for cover crops in the summer that are not going to compete with water. Because you have water in that form. Okay, I don't know if that answered the question. More or less. Yes, please.
Very interesting seminar. I think only the second part because I will be, but yeah, great. The question is about the acceptability of the agroecological measures by the farmers. Because, I mean, if you are a rich farmer and you say, oh yeah, this is interesting, and then invest, it doesn't matter. But yeah, I mean, I also saw that there were some peasants, some farmers, and they had great ideas. But how to convince, like, our farmers that using these techniques, these associations, will improve also, their income.
Yeah. In the case of California vineyards, the farmers are very interested more on the beauty than in the raw. However, for us, it's kind of the laboratory, the opportunity to research in this commercial farm is so important because it's the only way that others see the benefit and say, okay, why not? But the other thing is that they have a lot of visitors that they explain in the tour. It's like an environmental class for the regular people. People are so happy to learn about the benefits of the corridor or the island. And then they answer $20 to $50 a bottle in these vineyards. The bottle of wine. It's so expensive. But it's like high class, very fancy, but I'm very happy that they opened the door for us. And they say that this is a luxury kind of thing because they have, and also they receive a lot of money. So they have a lot of visitors, $10 per visitor. The other thing is in the case of low-income farming, el Atico and sugarcane. It's very interesting because they are big, but they did the research that demonstrate that they provide more labor, more jobs with less land, but also more intellectual knowledge. So farm workers are so happy to learn many things. Even in the vineyard, we are doing training of Mexican farm workers that work in the vineyard, that now they pay more because they have skills. So this is good. And the other thing, in terms of food products, they don't have money to like a system. So they're how we convince, with the presentation, I'm not going to convince anybody, neither you. I think the only way to convince is to visiting farmers in the same reality that they are when they see the benefits. Because when they see, they believe. So later, I'm here presenting a agroecological approach. Tomorrow comes another professor that presents GMOs, the benefits of GMOs of monoculture. The arguments are there, but I think it's ideological. Sometimes other people believe in one paradigm, I believe in another paradigm. It's a clash.
But like, don't they complain about the increased labor? Because of course you have to manage labor.
I think you reduce per person of people the amount of labor. But the good thing is that at least they are because they have more animals, probably they can in the milking factory, I don't know what they are hiring more people, so they are offering jobs to other people in the community that before they didn't have. Okay, so in that social aspect now, and they pay better. So they are very well recognized in that region because the farm workers are so happy, and they are the ones who explain to us that the students, they are not the owner. The workers are the ones that are empowered to present, so they feel more usable than just doing pruning or doing an activity. But I think it's easy with poor farmers and small farmers than big farmers. Yeah. I want to romanticize that all California is like that. There are status quo that I don't want to change, but for example, this company that approached us to do that, it's kind of. Yes.
The two types of farmers, it depends on the you described right now. Was a wet farmer in California where the visitors pay for looking at the farm, and on the other side, very poor farmers, subsistence farmers. Yeah. Which are a bit too opposite. If they are at the two edges of the potential farmers. I wonder how I think that there might be different obstacles in farmers for farmers that are living in green, so that maybe what the situation in this area is, as in most of the US anyway, is a farmer that have access to mechanization, a lot of mechanization. They have more money, but they can risk really possibly less than a poor farmer. And this is just that I think probably the obstacles are way different than
Totally. Yeah, but I think one of the big obstacles is the agricultural policy. Agricultural policies that also make farmers continue on conventional agriculture. And the loans that they have, they are trying to maintain the status quo. The market that when they market the product, the market is requiring certain things so that in certain period that they cannot diversify. So there are obstacles that are not agronomic products, they are more socioeconomic issues, or they don't have the knowledge. So that's farmers, we blame on farmers that this is what they know. They don't know how to use agroecology. So one thing is we need to train farmers in doing other things. We need to have farmers as a model for them to see that it's possible. For other farmers that are going to do it. So, and we need researchers that do research on machinery, researchers that are doing on genetics, and working together. Because the problem, and this is something that we still discuss the other day, that we are in our own niche, doing our own papers and publishing our own, but we are solving the problem. And we have a very high quality researchers, but they don't talk to each other. And we don't solve any problem. So I was discussing the other day, how about if we have more friends than before, and we have more universities, more PhDs, and we have the same problem as 4 years ago. Something is wrong. And I think the university need to, I'm from the university also, but it's very difficult to talk with colleagues. So I like to work outside with farmers. I think it's there's more open to willing to work with us. So we're starting now.
What's your opinion on the DSS? The digital support system.
It could be good. I think it's good, but as Miguel was saying, I don't need to mention. Sometimes it's difficult, that you put all this information in the cloud. We don't know who is using this information for what. So I think it's a good tool, but in the future, I don't know.
We'll keep it in good hands, but in good hands.
Yeah, in good hands, exactly. I'm not against technology, I think it's in hands of whom. For example, when we talk about GMOs, it's not that we are against the technology, it's who owns the technology, corporations to make money. Because it would be nice to edit genes, to develop a plant that is resistant to weeds. That is the problem that farmers have. Not to herbicide that the company said. I think the company wants to make profit, but they don't want to help farmers. The technology is good, yes. Who Who is using the technology is the problem. And they own the technology because if the Colombian Research Institute wants to use the technology, I could enroll it to them, but they are very happy with the technology. This is more political. And so
The systems you talk about, and because your systems are much more complex, I think it's very hard to put in a PSS that generally works on variables in an agricultural system. So they are very hard. They are this PSS. So I think it's really a mindset that goes in a direction that it doesn't take into account how the system works.
exactly.
It doesn't do one line.
Yeah, exactly. But I'm scared because now in Japan they are using robots, but they don't have farms, first of all. They don't want migration, secondly. And third, they are using robots to do the tasks that the human needs to do. And also have pollinators. Third, it's kind of scary. But anyway, this is one part. Okay, well, I have learned from small parties, we need to be optimistic, we cannot be pessimistic. This is another part. And that's it, this is what we need to do.
Okay.
Hey, thank you.
Thank you.
I'm so sorry.
Thank you for attending. I enjoy you a good weekend.
Yeah.
And we will see here for the third seminar next Monday at 9. Thank you to everyone
Thank you.
and see you on Monday. Thank you, Clara.
Thank you. Sorry, the delay.